Aloha! You are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 175. This episode is sponsored by the Tiki Bar T-Shirt Club, where their monthly T-shirt designs pay tribute to a Polynesian bar or restaurant from days long past. Each design is available for a limited time and will never be produced again. For the collectors out there, be sure to check out their subscription program, where they offer a discounted 3, 6, or 12-month plan. For more information and to check out this month's shirt, visit tikibartshirtclub.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by the Tiki Tea, a family-owned and operated tropical drink bar in Los Angeles, California. Come get their house specialty, the Raised Mistake, for only $6 on Wednesdays until 9 p.m. For more information, check out their website, tiki-ti.com. This episode is sponsored by Skull and Crown Trading Company, located in the historic Chinatown district of Honolulu on the island of Oahu. Skull and Crown is Hawaii's premier exotic destination. Enjoy delicious island favorites and classically crafted cocktails in their mysterious tiki room or their enchanted courtyard. For more information, visit them on the web at skullandcrowntrading.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram at Skull and Crown Trading Co. On this episode, we chat with artist, carver, and builder Danny Gallardo, also known as Tiki Diablo. Tiki Diablo is a world-renowned tiki carver, mug maker, and thematic builder, having created some of the most iconic collectibles and tiki-themed spaces of the modern era. If you're a tiki enthusiast, odds are you've got one or more of his tiki mugs in your collection, or you visited a bar he's built. I've known Danny for about 2 decades, and so on this episode, we chat about the early days of tiki when we first met, what and who inspires his work, his thoughts on the current state of tiki, and learn a little bit more about his background and origin story. As always, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider helping us with your support during this challenging time. Stop by desertoasisroom.com to check out our merch or leave us a tip. We've got tiki mugs, t-shirts, and pendants available right now. Any purchase or donation, no matter the size, is totally appreciated and helps keep this podcast coming to you every week. Alrighty, grab a cocktail and join us inside the Desert Oasis Room. And give it up for artist, carver, and builder, Tiki Diablo.
Desert Oasis Room.
Hello.
Yo. What's up?
What's going on?
Not much. What are you doing?
Just chilling, getting ready, trying to get into a quiet spot of the house.
Working, living the dream?
Yeah, I was just demolding a master mold right now, and I got lucky. Nothing broke.
Oh, that's good. It's always nice when things go the way they're supposed to, right?
Yeah. No complaints.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah. We've attempted to get together once before, and we went to go have beers instead. So
yeah,
that's how things work out for us, huh?
That happens to us all the time. So for our listeners out there, we have Tiki Diablo on the show today. His shop used to be not too far away from where I live, and he came over to record one time, and we just said, so we're going to do this? And I'm like, fuck it, let's go get a beer.
Yeah, we started with a cocktail at the house first, I think.
That's right.
Then it was over.
That's right. So here's the thing. So, I've known Danny for a long time. We're coming up on 2 decades now. And
ooh, when's our anniversary?
Oh, I don't know the exact date.
Because yours is today.
That's right. Today it's my wedding anniversary. Thanks for reminding me. So I've known Danny for a long time. So we always put this thing off, and we keep saying, we'll get to it, because we talk all the time, and people keep asking for this. People keep sending me messages and saying like, "Hey, when are you going to do that Tiki Diablo episode?" So here it is. So again, thanks for taking some time out of your day.
Yeah, no problem.
I want to tell people about your origin story because, you've been in the public eye in the Tiki community for a long time. So like I said, coming up on 2 decades. And, I've seen people come and go. You've seen people come and go. And you're just as strong, I would say stronger than you ever were when you first even started back in the day, back when there wasn't a whole lot of people doing this Tiki thing.
Right.
And I think people would be interested to know. I don't know how much of this you want to reveal. I know your origin story, but I think people would be interested to hear that. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about that. So, number one, did you go to art school? Number two,
hell no. Yeah, for a day. I was. I think I was 4.5 going on 5. I know I was too young to be in kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
So that was like art class.
That was art class. So that's the answer to the first question. To answer the second question, and then we're going to have many more questions. Question number 2, what were you doing before you were doing Tiki?
Okay. So I was working for a home improvement chain. It was a national chain. It was actually pre-Home Depot. It was called Home. It used to be Home Club, and then it was Home Base. Basically, if I had to like put it in 2020 terms, I was like a fixer. So, I was single. I wasn't married yet. And I basically was sent to like a store here in Southern California. And I was like, okay, go fix this, go fix that, whatever, get the thing in shape. And then they would ship me off to another store. And through the course of, these different stores, it came out that I was creative. And I took the gardening department in one of the stores and like built waterfalls and redwood decks and cross merchandised other departments in the store, regardless if they were my departments or not.
Right.
And it bumped up sales everywhere, and it gave people that didn't have the vision to like put things together. They're like, oh, okay, this is what I can do. This is about what it would cost. They would, do the math for their project, and off they were, buying stuff. So, I had come up with about 3 or 4 different things that became like, chain-wide, company-wide programs. And I was kind of like, well, that was cool. I know I have some value here, and I ended up getting, gave me some confidence. So I ended up getting sent over to run the number 1 nursery in the chain, which happened to be in South Orange County. And they said, you could do whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, okay. Really? Okay.
That's awesome.
And it was funny because our corporate office was in Irvine. We were the closest store to corporate. And because of that proximity with corporate, they were in and out all the time. We were like the test bed.
Right.
So here's this young guy. And I was actually the only Latino manager, in this store. And I was like, kind of like the golden child. Like they gave me an extra raise. They would come and ask the president and the vice president would come and ask for me by name. And they gave me a open PO, blank, like a blank check,
nice.
Do whatever I wanted. So I went to town and did a tiki scene. But it initially started out like Gilligan's Island, that which was what my exposure was to that, in my head,
right.
Hawaii, tropical. And through that research, I found the Book of Tiki.
Okay.
And this was, I don't know, it was like eye-opening to me. And
the Book of Tiki,
to make a long story longer, go ahead.
At that time, the Book of Tiki had to have just come out because when I met you, it was brand spanking new.
Yeah. This was 2001. I was freshly married, got married in 2000, and I remember getting this book, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is cool," you know.
Right.
It before I just skimmed the surface, you know, from whatever, you know, kind of like limited materials were out there for me to look.
Right.
You know, the internet. You would look up Tiki, and there was like Bosco, and some place Red's Tiki's in Florida, and of course, My Tiki in Florida also, with Wayne Coombs, and then that was it. So, you know, to make a long story longer, I ended up, you know, doing the whole theme in this outdoor nursery, and I had carved my own tikis because we didn't have a source for them, and you know, I did have to, you know, manage my budget, even though I technically didn't have a budget. You know, you don't want to overspend. Your clients, or in that case, my bosses, they, you know, they'd be looking at like, what is this dude doing? He's over here spending, you know, buying gold toilet seats and shit, you know?
Right. So,
yeah, like I fell in love with this machine that I had, you know, drawn and created and watched people interact with. They would come in and they would, like, literally every week, somebody was trying to buy one of the tikis that I had carved.
Right.
And, then one day I just kind of like, I guess this was the day of your birthday, you know, 2001, September 11th, was it 2001?
Uh-huh.
And I saw all the things go down on television. I was kind of like, oh man, like what the hell, you know, like what is this? You know, like the world had changed for me. I was like watching people, you know, doing what was, you know, just watching what everybody was going through, and it really impacted me. And I had to go to work that day. And I just didn't want to be there. I was like, man, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the following day, when I went to work, I was like, man, like this is not what I want to do. Like creating this environment that I did, you know, getting paid to be creative was awesome. But once the daily grind set in, and I had to, you know, manage all these employees that were in my departments. And, you know, they're just coming with some, you know, whatever their concerns were. You know, I was kind of like, man, I don't want to be here. So basically, I called my wife and I'm like, you know, I earlier that day I had asked myself a question. Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? You know, because I was in my late 20s at the time. And I was kind of like, well, you know, what's the next step for me? Like, you know, is this it? So basically it was, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And the answer was either yes or it was no. So I kind of had to take a long look in the mirror, and the answer was no. So literally that day, I quit, just walked out, like handed in my keys. And I left. And, you know, of course, you know, I called my wife and told her what was going on. And she's like, all right, I'll back you up. I trust you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's pretty tough because we had only been married.
Yeah, a year, right? Yeah.
But, you know, I've always had a lot of support for her. So she knew to trust me and I knew to trust her. So, yeah, I quit, left. And by that time, I had already started a plan to think I was going to start doing something Tiki related.
Right.
And I didn't know what, but I also thought, I kind of like tend to overthink things sometimes. I'm kind of like a classic Gemini. I'm either 0 or 60. So I'm overthinking, or I just jump in the deep end and just do it. And I'm like, you know, screw it. We'll figure it out, you know, as we go. You know, no one's going to die. If no one's going to die, then cool, let's just do it.
Right, right. That's a pretty bold move. I mean,
so, you know, I mean,
that takes a lot of balls.
I guess. I mean, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it enough to be scared.
Right.
And then we took a nice fat trip. We were on vacation for almost a month. We did 3 weeks in total in Cancun, and we did 1 week in Havana. And,
nice.
And then I came back and just hit it full force.
Yeah.
Tiki full time.
Yeah.
No parachute.
It's crazy. I remember those days. And, you know, right from the beginning, you were already doing Tiki mugs. I mean, it wasn't just.
Yeah.
I mean, it was full blown. It wasn't just carvings, but you had carvings, you had apparel, you had ceramics. You were doing all kinds of stuff, and I remember those early tikis. I remember the first tikis that you carved for that garden project. Do you know where those things ended up?
No, so after I had already quit, I had left some of my personal property there, which were the tikis that I had carved. And I was kind of like nervous to go back because it was like the crazy rumor mill that I had quit. Everybody was shocked because here I was, had only been there a few months. For some reason, everybody like took a liking to me. They totally backed me up. Like literally 2 of my 3 assistants quit.
Wow.
Because I quit.
Wow.
They're like, all right, Danny's not here, we're out. And I was like, no, don't do that. What are you doing? You know,
right.
Don't listen to me. I'm crazy, you know, but they're like, nah, it's not the same, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went back, to get these 3 tikis that I had carved. And it just so happened that, that somebody was there trying to buy them again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And literally every week I would get names and phone numbers of people that wanted to buy my tikis. And I was like, well, you know, I'm salaried, I'm in management. Like it's a conflict of interest for me to sell them. I can't.
Right.
And I had nobody to refer them to. So it was kind of like a dick move. Like, oh, they're not for sale. Can't help you buy, you know, but of course I'd never put it like that.
Yeah.
And as I went to go pick them up, some dude wanted to buy them. They were on his cart. So then I'm like, well, you know, hell, I'm not an employee anymore. So,
yeah.
So he's like, well, what do you want? And I'm all right. You know, I don't know. I throw out like, I don't know. I can't remember. It was probably like $900, you know, 300 each or something.
Wow. Was it that high back then?
Yeah, it was. There were like 300 each. There was 3 tikis. One of them was like 4 foot.
Okay.
And then 2 were like 3 footers. And I was like, shit, you know, that's what I make in a week. Like, you know, I just made, you know, in my mind, I made in 5 seconds, I made what took me to make, you know, a week or whatever it was that I was making. So I was like, yeah, cool. So it was like, I was hooked.
Wow.
I was like, man, I just got paid for creating something and somebody wanted it and I sold it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
great feeling.
I was hooked. I was like, all right, let's do this. I rolled up my sleeves and just went to town.
Yeah, in those early days, you were carving tikis pretty regularly, and I was fortunate enough to get one of your early tikis. I think I have a total of 8 of your tikis. But back then...
more than me.
Yeah.
I don't have any.
Back then, I got that one from you at the... it was a tiki farm, big old tiki bash. It was kind of the first local tiki event in the new revival. Mm-hmm. And Drew Brophy showed there, you showed there. I think Bamboo Ben built some bars. There were some, you know, miscellaneous artists that were kind of showing their stuff. And it was a really small thing compared to the way things are today. And that tiki that I got there, and this is why I was surprised that you were saying 300 for those first tikis, because the tiki I got from you there was, I think, 150, something like that. I don't know if it was a bro deal or not that you gave me.
Maybe, you know what? I don't know. Maybe
might have been, but I mean, because you always gave me bro deals, so yeah. So, and I appreciate that. And this was one that I sold a bunch of stuff just to get it because, you know, at that time I was poor too, right? We were all younger. We were all trying to find our way.
I think I gave you the brown discount because at that time probably you and I were the only brown people in tiki.
That's right. Know? That's right. That's right. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And you know that I still have that tiki, and it meant a lot to me because it was really, I wasn't really buying art yet at that point. So it was really kind of the first piece of art that a friend of mine had made. Right. And over the years, I ended up getting things like when I was married to my first wife, she commissioned you to carve a Marquesan wall plaque that hangs in my bar. I still have that today. And I have a few other things that are important to me as well. So one of them was a Marquesan that you carved for my daughter's 1-year birthday party when she turned 1.
Yeah, Sydney.
Yep, Sydney. And she already graduated high school. You know, she's going to be starting.
Pictures. It's
Isn't that
like
crazy? She's starting college in September, and
wow.
I still have that tiki. Of course, it's a very very important tiki to me because it was from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have Tiki Ricardo, which was in Copernason Gallery, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that was Copernason. Yeah.
Yep. So I was in an art show, and I got to think of what else I've got, but I've got quite a few things from you, and a bunch of your early mugs. So what I think people will find interesting is these early mugs you were making out of your garage, handmade, and you had brought a bunch to Sven's house. I don't know if you remember this, and you're selling them out of the trunk of your car. And
no.
They were,
that sounds fun.
And, and they were cool. They were cool. So they were like, you know, your take on a coup mug. And I think there were 2 designs, but you had a bunch of different colors. And you didn't even know what to price them at. I remember saying like, hey, so what do you want for these? And you said, $25. That sound cool?
Right.
And I said, all right. And you said, I'll tell you what, $25 a piece, 2 for $40. So I said, cool. So I bought 2 because I thought, oh yeah, get the deal, 2 for $40.
Right.
And in retrospect, man, should have bought them all.
Right.
Right.
You got kids in college.
I know,
Sell
right?
it all.
So yeah, that was fun. And you know, back then we were also bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You know, just learning everything that there was to learn about mid-century Polynesian pop-style tiki.
Right.
Do you remember where you were drawing your influences from? I know that your book of tiki is like really, really beat up because that was a nice reference point. Did you have like a favorite style or a favorite carver that you were motivated by or inspired by?
So back then, I would say it would be coup, right?
Right.
I would say my biggest influences at the time were Leroy Schmaltz and Crazy Al.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say those 2 are my biggest influences until I really settled into my own style. You could definitely see those influences.
Okay.
And I still look at both of their carvings and I'm like, fuck, I wish I could carve like that, you know?
Right.
Like, they're just 2 dudes that will never be replicated. Nobody will equal them in their styles.
Right.
You know, they go deeper in their projects than I'm willing to go because of kind of like the path that I've chosen.
Sure.
So, you know, and I don't carve art pieces. I carve tikis that would have fit in a tiki bar back in the day, you know. I do the best that I can in the time that I have allotted for myself to carve that tiki.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is that you have developed such a, what's the word that I'm looking for? A very distinct style that, you know, if I see a Diablo, I know that that's a Diablo. And I love especially the earlier ones, man. There was just something about them that really captured that mid-century Polynesian pop style that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
You know?
You know which one you have that I really like and I miss?
What's that?
Well, besides the Tiki Ricardo, is that Marquesan.
That's the one you did for Sydney's birthday. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And that was a huge, I remember that log and that carving, that commission, because I didn't have a huge stash of logs.
Okay.
And that was the log I had. And picking the log is like picking a watermelon. You don't know until you get in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it happened to be, I hit a soft spot, and it was right in the freaking middle of the tiki. And I really had to work hard to make that carving work. You know, and I didn't let it beat me. I really liked the way it came out. But that log, you know, was a challenging log because it had a soft spot in it, in the worst possible spot.
Right. So for our listeners that aren't familiar with what we're talking about, let's give them a little 101 on logs and what's ideal for carving.
So for me, it's basically what I carve the most, and it's a Mexican fan palm. And you can carve other logs. I have carved other woods, other types of wood, but the Mexican fan palm is, as I understand it, it was the traditional log for carving Polynesian pop tikis.
Sure.
And it's funny, the way it's been told to me is the reason those were picked was when they were expanding the freeway system in LA, back in the golden era of tiki. There was a standing order to chop down all the palm trees along the freeway in order to create this,
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
These highways and stuff. And I think that the order still stands per. I know I think she's the landscape architect for the city of LA. I carved her and her husband some tikis, and she told me, "Oh yeah, that order still stands."
Oh wow!
They're supposed to chop down all the palm trees,
wow.
But they don't, because it's also so iconic.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do? Nobody wants to cut down a palm tree. They're
yeah,
so beautiful looking.
Yeah. So for tiki nerds like me, the Mexican fan palm, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. The Mexican fan palm is ideal once it's been dried. So
yeah,
for the average person out there that probably doesn't know this, you got to dry the logs for, I think, what's the minimum? 6 months? Better if you dry longer?
6 months to a year.
Right, 6 months to a year. Mexican fan palm is going to be better than, say, a queen palm, because a queen is going to be mostly hollow in the middle and stringy, so it doesn't work. And so for the other carvers out there that don't use Mexican fan palm, you might find certain characteristics in the logs that they use because of the style that they like to create. So, for example, Bosco and Ken Pleasant, they like to use cedar because it duplicates kind of that Whitco style, which is who their influences are. And Whitco used swamp cedar, if I'm correct. And I think our buddy Lake Surfer out in Milwaukee uses, what does he use? He uses, I think, pine, right?
Yeah, I think he uses pine.
Yeah. Pine and maybe basswood, what's native to where he's from. And you're going to get different characteristics out of your tikis depending on the kind of log that you use, right? So, and you got to dry the logs. So some of these tikis that you've carved for me were heavy when I first got them because they might have still had water inside, but dry enough on the outside to carve, and over time that they've lightened up. So Tiki Ricardo is one of those, I believe. And yeah, that one was hollowed out, and it's got a drum skin on top, so the sound goes out through the mouth. But the base of it, I think, still was pretty heavy, but now it's pretty light.
Solid.
I mean, had for what?
Yeah, that guy was. The reason I called him Tiki Ricardo is I turned that into a conga drum. And I hollowed out the head, and I hollowed out the head all the way down to the mouth, and then the mouth was open, and it was a play on a mug I had made, I think, called the Macumba.
That's right.
Which is a play on the Whitco fountain.
Right.
And then I skinned it, and I just, I don't know, I just liked that idea of turning it into something functional, dual purpose. And then, it was for Copenhagen, which was, a huge step for me as far as art shows, at the time. And even now,
Yeah.
So, those Mexican fan palms are ideal for me.
Right. You know what I wanted to do to that Tiki Ricardo? So I was kind of torn about this. So I went down to Sam Ash, and I was looking at actual, like a real drum skin with the frame, a tunable frame and everything, that I was actually going to mount it on there so it actually had a tunable drum skin. But then I thought, you know what? I shouldn't fuck with it. I should leave it the way that it is, right? And so I did, But I thought, how cool would it be if I could actually tune the drum head,
Right.
So I was kind of torn about that, but I'm glad I didn't mess with it. But yeah, it's great. And that one does have the skin on it too, so it still has that outside skin.
Yep. And I did it. I mean, I'm sure it's loosened up over time. And when I did it, I was probably had a deadline to meet with putting that skin on. So I probably got it as tight as I could, under the conditions that I had. But it looked good. I mean, it looked good, and it was a fun piece. And sometimes I catch a glimpse of an old carving. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, oh, you idiot, you made that, So I don't know how that sounds, but that's the truth. Sometimes I look and I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, no shit. Of course you like it.
And by the way,
carved it.
By the way, talking about iconic tikis, I think you still hold the record for the world's largest tiki mug.
I don't know. I mean, carved, probably. Yes. I don't think someone's done a carved one since. I know Danielle Mann made like a styrofoam carved tiki. But like functional, usable, yeah, probably.
Well, yeah, the one that you carved, so it was carved out of a log also, but it is
huge log.
It's still I mean, if people were ambitious, it's still a drinking vessel. And how tall is that thing? 4 or 5 feet tall? 5 feet tall, maybe?
Maybe 4.5 feet.
Okay. It's pretty big. And you had to use a full-size umbrella and a beach ball to have the correct proportion for the garnish if you were going to garnish it. And, people would do that for photo shoots and that kind of thing. It was almost as tall as the pinups that had posed with it. So
yeah, I remember Winky Tiki Octavio. He used it in a pinup shoot, and he put the girl inside the tiki mug, and she held the parasol. It's the cocktail.
There you go.
Cocktail umbrella, and then I made a straw out of plumbing pipe. There
you go.
PVC plumbing pipe, and painted it red.
Do you know where that thing ended up?
Yeah, it's in San Diego County. And a collector picked it up years ago, and pretty sure he still has it.
Very cool. So I want to talk about some of your builds because there's some cool stuff here that I don't know if our listeners know all of them. If I am correct, was your first build that Trader Joe's down in Irvine?
So the first build was a Trader Joe's, if I remember. But no, first build I had wasn't tiki. It was my father-in-law's deli in Laguna Beach.
Oh, okay.
And he hired me to do it. I told him I would do it for free, but he was super classy guy. One of the best examples I've had in business and in life, besides my father and my grandfather, and he said, no, nobody works for free. He wouldn't have it.
Right.
So yeah, I themed out I made some stuff for the deli, did the bathroom and, a bunch of other stuff. And the one of the most popular things was something that I did with the least amount of effort. He had, from the previous owner, he had these copper pendant lights with the glass shade, nothing special. So I put a blue light bulb in there, and then I got a piece of like number 6 copper grounding wire, and I created like a coiled tornado around them.
Oh, interesting.
And everybody wanted to buy them. He's like, man, you should make these and sell them. Like, everybody always wants to know where I got the lights.
Wow.
And this was 90s, so it was classic, 90s Friends era,
Yeah.
So that was the first one.
Oh, so you were building stuff before you were even a tiki guy.
Yeah, I have always been doing something since I can remember.
Yeah, okay.
I was always making a mess in my dad's garage or my grandfather's yard, since, I can remember.
Okay. Always working with your hands.
Yeah, before then, I think I was into, fabricating, welding, off-road stuff.
Right. Right.
I think the term now is called overlanding, but we were doing this because we would drive down to Cabo San Lucas every year, my cousins and I. So I was always building something and modifying and testing out theories on my this old 4Runner that I had.
Oh, nice. Dude, that's a long-ass drive.
Yeah, it was a drive, but it was fun, and we were, we were young and dumb, and we would go and raise hell and just hang out. And I mean, literally, the stuff that we did on those trips was like The Hangover.
Oh, man, yeah.
Like, it was like on that level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So those were good memories.
Yeah, it was the reason why I brought up that Trader Joe's was, that was still in the early days. I don't think that there was really anything being built so much yet at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you had done the Trader Joe's down in Irvine and into like a Hawaiian theme, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I did. So the first one was technically in Santa Ana, right by the South Coast Plaza, right on their border. And that store actually doesn't exist anymore. They closed it. But I did Santa Ana, and then I did... so back then I was in South Orange County, and I did a bunch of stores down there. I think we had tikis or artifacts in about 12 different Trader Joe's at the time.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that one you redid all the signs and you renamed each of the registers like a different Hawaiian island or something like that.
Yeah.
And is it still that theme? Do you know?
I don't think so. I know Trader Joe's started to worry about offending people with the religious icons.
Oh, okay.
And I think at that time there was a change. I'm not sure what happened, but Trader Joe's got more corporate-y in the office. And, I guess as you grow, you have to get a little more, structured.
Yeah.
But while we did work for them, it was great because at one point they would just give me a budget and they would literally just say, okay, do what you can with this.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to like run things by them. They're we trust you. Here you go. Here's this lump sum of money. This is what we have to spend on it. Do your thing.
Yeah. I always wonder what happens when something like that gets taken down. What happens to all the carvings, the signs, and all that? As urban archaeologists, we like to save that kind of stuff. I had heard that the tikis that you carved for Trader Vic's in downtown LA, I heard that one of them, or maybe two of them, surfaced at a Trader Vic's down in the Seychelles.
Yeah, actually, all three of them are there.
Oh, all three of them are there.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. So now they're on the other side of the world on an island off the coast of South Africa. I think that's where Seychelles is, right?
God, I don't want to sound ignorant.
I know it's out there somewhere. Yeah. But that's crazy, man. Yeah, so I always wonder about that stuff because, when Trader Vic's closed down, my first thought was, all right, where are those tikis going?
Right.
And I'm sure there were people that probably tried to go down there on a covert mission to get them after they heard that Trader Vic's was closing down to try to liberate them and save them. Right. But they were probably taken over that point.
Yeah, I heard somebody tried to steal them once.
Oh, really?
Like a couple of guys rolled up in an SUV, these big guys, and they went and they tried to like shake them to like pull them off their mounts.
Wow.
And I guess they weren't able to take them, so they jumped back in their SUV and took off.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know they were mounted down that firmly. I thought they were just on pedestals.
No. I had drawn up a suggested way of mounting them, but I didn't fabricate them. That they took my advice, and it's a good thing they did because that's probably what saved them.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. So let me ask you, as a person that's been in this scene since the very beginning of the revival, how do you think the scene is different today than how it was when you and I first entered the scene back in the late 90s? The thing that seems to be the hot button topic these days is cultural appropriation.
Right.
And there's a lot of talk about, this whole tiki thing. Are we being racist? Right. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, to just discredit their argument would be ignorant of us.
Sure.
Like I said before, I mean, you have to listen to what they have to say, but just at the same time, they have to listen to what we have to say. And I think there's going to be a common ground where we come to a good resolution, or we might just agree to disagree. I know that I have listened to a lot of it and absorbed it, and actually made some different different business practices that I have, and it's probably as a result of that, but not entirely due to that. I can't credit all of that, because I kind of started considering this a few years ago. The more we started doing mugs for corporations and distilleries and brands, I had to consider their brand and reputation, but also mine.
Sure.
There are some things that we are willing, that we won't do. We have to, I guess, super early on in my career when I started carving, I said, okay, well, Tiki is two things here. From my experience at the time, it's cultural and it could even be religious, or from a certain way of life, or ethnicity, or it's Polynesian pop. And there is a crossover, but there's definitely two different schools.
Right.
And at that time, I didn't feel qualified to say I was an authority in anything. Yes, I did have a natural ability, and I did carve in a traditional manner, but I also had to consider that if I'm going to be working in a style of a culture that is not mine, I need to be as respectful and truthful to that style.
Yeah.
I would have to put myself in that situation and be like, okay, if I was from the Cook Islands, or if I was Marquesan, how would I feel if I saw a tiki holding a cheeseburger? And I'm like, no, I mean, that would be offensive. Just like I see a logo of a bandito, of a fat, greasy, lazy Mexican against a cactus, I'm going to be like, hey, what the hell? That's not me. Right. That's not anybody I know in my family. So I had to create art through those eyes, to be as respectful of a culture that it was not mine.
Right. That's a very noble thing to say, and I agree with you 100%. As somebody that is a person of color in this particular genre,
mm-hmm.
I'm torn, because there are times that I think like, oh, this is cool, that is cool. And it might be okay for someone like me, because I'm also of Islander heritage, right? Islander descent. It might be okay for me to put those things on my walls, but I just think that there is no black and white. I think that it's much, much more complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that people need to be more receptive to the sensitivity of that. I don't think everything is offensive if it's done respectfully, and that's the key word. But
Correct.
Sometimes
the key.
That's the key.
With respect.
But sometimes I don't think that people think that far ahead. And even
but
if they should. And even if someone says, like, this makes me feel uncomfortable, I see too many people that scoff at that and say, oh, come on, it's just fun, like, lighten up. And it's
right.
That sentiment is already, that in itself is offensive to me, because it's like, hey, wait a second, somebody's expressing concern, and
mm-hmm.
you're basically saying that their concern doesn't matter because it doesn't matter to you, so
right.
It shouldn't matter to them.
Well, it doesn't raise a red flag to them because they haven't experienced
sure.
racial discrimination, like, let's say we have, and
yeah,
you and I have talked before about certain things that we have experienced, and it's like, hey man, like, that's, we're fucking pissed off,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This person showed their true colors, and it's like, no, dude, we are not friends,
Yeah.
No, you don't know me like that. Like, if me and you kid around and say something, there is a lot of mutual respect and understanding of, common experiences or cultures or traditions, But when somebody else kind of comes in and ignorantly just kind of like tries to brush it off, it's kind of like, hey, what the hell? You don't know me like that,
Right. Yeah. I think this is a topic that will be discussed for quite a while, especially.
It won't end.
Yeah, because, especially in today's climate, right?
Right.
But just some food for thought out there for our listeners. A lot of the time when cultural appropriation is a label that is kind of scoffed at, just remember that there are other people that maybe that is important to them, that this is a topic that is important to them, and that's why it's being discussed, and that's why it's being put in the forefront. So
yeah, totally. I don't think it's ever going to end. I do appreciate these conversations,
and I do too.
But I also have noticed some people aren't willing to do the same amount of work. Like, okay, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
If you want to have a heart to heart, all right, open up your chest.
Yep.
Let me see your heart.
Yep.
Let me see what you really think. And some of the things that I don't appreciate are when how should I say this? When it starts getting uncomfortable, they bow out because they have the luxury of being able to bow out. Whereas some people of color can't crawl out of their skin.
Right.
They can't crawl out of their brownness or their ethnicity and jump into the force field of whatever.
Right.
So it's like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to all do this together so we can really come to a true agreement. And the thing is, it's one thing in my old age, or getting older, it's like I realized I can't control anybody but myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm also going to have to know, like, okay, not all battles, you don't have to fight every battle,
Right.
You got to pick your battles and conserve your energy. Me as a creative, I try and always stay what I call like in the light, like in the positive,
Yeah.
It's really easy to get caught up in someone's negative energy, and go down, the rabbit hole of controversy or conflict, but who is that helping,
Yeah.
So I try and divert my energy to positive things. I try and put myself in the position where if I'm the first one there, I'm going to hold the door open for the next guy. I don't appreciate somebody being motivated by greed, or they want their success where it's just them. And for you, with this person, it's like if they have to win and you have to lose. It's like, no, why can't we all win? Why can't we all do this together?
That's a great sentiment, man. That's a great sentiment. I agree with you 100%. So let's change the mood a little bit. I want to ask you some fun questions. I ask some of these fun questions periodically. And I don't know if you've heard any of these before. You may have. The superpower question. Have you heard that one before?
Oh, we're gonna do a Facebook game? Come on, Adrian.
Facebook games. If you could pick any superpower, what would you choose? So I'm going to tell you, to help you along the way, I'm going to tell you some of my favorite answers that I've gotten with this.
All right.
I've gotten answers. My favorite answer, which is my answer, or one of my favorites, is eat whatever I want without getting fat. Be able to teleport so I don't have to sit on a long flight, or if I want to go to Paris for dinner, I can go to Paris and then be back home in time for bed. Be able to communicate with my pets. Speak any language so I can communicate with anybody wherever I travel. Those are some examples. Do you have anything that you've always wished you've been able to do? Any superpower?
Okay, well, I'm gonna name two.
All right.
And one's gonna probably make me sound like an asshole, but one of them is fly.
Yeah.
Like, how awesome would that be?
It would be awesome.
That's every kid's dream is to be able to fly.
Right.
From the first time you saw Superman, you're like, oh man, everybody's put that towel on, and jumped from the couches and run around, they're envisioning their cape flapping in the wind, but no, it's just really tucked in their drawers, and they're just, running around in their pajamas and shit.
Right.
So that's one. And, we've all had those dreams where we're flying, and the second one is, this is the ones that make me sound like an asshole, but creativity,
Oh, why
That's
would
a
that make you
superpower.
sound like an asshole? You know what? Here's the thing. People that are creative, I mean, there's nothing more debilitating than having a creative block, right? Than having writer's block of some sort. It's got to be frustrating especially if you're a creative person,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how that would make you sound like an asshole. I think that that's a fair answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm saying that because I consider myself a creative, or I realize that I'm a creative person. But I feel like that's to my advantage in any situation because it allows you to think. Some people think linear, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's like no, creativity is spherical. You attack a problem from all different planes. It's not 1 and 2 and 3. It's from all different angles.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. That actually makes really good sense. Maybe because I think linearly.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, that's just the way. I mean, you probably wouldn't look. You probably think like, looking at me like, oh, he doesn't think this or that. But I don't know. Like having worked a lot by myself over the years, I always try and apply my creativity to any problem. There's nothing more infuriating to me than when I'm like, okay, let's solve this, and they're like, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Right.
And it's like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. This is the way we've always done it. You know?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine what the world would be like if that's the way, industry was ruled, or people, or medicine, or whatever,
Sure. Yep. Okay. If a movie were to be made about your life, who would you pick to play you?
I don't know, man.
For me, it would be The Rock, because I think we kind of look the same.
Yeah. You and The Rock?
Yeah.
Maybe you're more the Pebble than The Rock. You're lucky I didn't say kidney stone, right?
Right. Oh, that's right.
I'm messing, Adrian.
No, I know.
It's like we're drinking and we're clowning each other. And when I joke like that with somebody, some people think that's being mean or rough, but it's like, no, it's a dance. Right. Don't you hear the music? Like, come back at me, let's,
right.
It's a tennis match.
Right.
Oh man, I have no idea who would play me.
Let me pick somebody.
I don't know. Some dude off the street.
Let me pick somebody. How about who's the kid that played Spider-Man? Tom Holland. Tom Holland.
Who is that?
He played Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe.
The most recent one?
Yeah.
The one where he goes to London or something?
He's from London.
But in the movie, Spider-Man goes to Europe or something.
Yeah.
Or Italy or Venice.
I think it was, I'm going to get this wrong. Was it the Eiffel Tower, or it was something like that? Yeah.
Right. So he would play me?
Yeah, because he's the exact opposite of you, so that would make the movie comical.
Oh, okay. I'll take that. I'll watch it, I think.
All right. One last fun question. If you could spend time with anyone, dead or alive, real or fictitious, who would you choose? So my answer to this, to help you think about that, I think it'd be fun to spend a day with Ferris Bueller. He's fictitious.
Okay.
I think it'd be cool to spend time with Bruce Lee. He's dead. But my real answer, like my go-to, which is, in all fairness, I've asked this question 100 times, and so I've had lots of answers from other people, and I've been able to think about it for myself. I think I'd like to speak with like a great-great-grandfather or great-great-great-grandfather, learn about my lineage and learn about my ancestors. Mm-hmm. That would be probably my final answer. But there's quite a few out there that I think that I would enjoy. Maybe hang out with Marty McFly, and jump in the time machine, So,
right.
Dead or alive, real or fictitious. Don the Beachcomber maybe would be cool as a tiki guy.
Who?
Don the Beachcomber as a tiki guy, or Trader Vic's. I don't know.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I it's so hard because I really couldn't pick one. There's so many people,
Yeah.
that I would love to talk to and just pick their brain and
sure,
kind of see the world through their eyes.
Yeah.
Be it family members that have passed on. Oh man, I don't know. It's
family
just
for me is big because I know nothing about my family past my grandfather. I only know up to my grandfather because as a young guy, I was too self-centered to care, and now as an adult, as a grown adult, I regret not having asked the questions that I could have asked while he was alive. I don't know anything about his dad, which would be my great-grandfather. And I don't know anything about his grandfather, which would be my great-great-grandfather, right?
Right.
And it kills me that I will probably never know. So
there's one that I've kind of touched on, you talking about great-grandfathers. I think he's my great-great-great-grandfather, that he was like an activist. He was like a bad motherfucker,
Oh, nice.
He was... his house still stands in Tucson, and he was a senator and a judge in Sonora, Mexico, and then later moved to the Tucson area. Actually, he moved to Tucson in the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And he retired. He was retired from being a politician and a judge. I think his father was also a judge. Maybe that's why I like to argue. I come from a family of,
okay.
That line of work. And then he had a general store, and as a local merchant, he noticed that there was a lack of information available to the indigenous people, especially the Spanish-speaking people in the area. So he closed his general store and started up the first Spanish language newspaper in Arizona, and I think later it was distributed into the four corner states. And he also and he did this because he felt like there was an injustice. There was a lack of information that kept a lot of the Mexican American people ignorant, or they had to hear it secondhand, all the information, which is a super dangerous thing to do because you could literally tell anybody anything.
Right.
And he had this newspaper that grew to the largest Spanish Spanish language newspaper in the American Southwest until his death. He ran it for 16 years, but he also started a fraternal order, an insurance company that helped provide life insurance for Mexican American people. And it was kind of like a fraternal order, where it wasn't just him that started it, but he was the main force, and he and some of his friends that were in the position to be helpful, started this organization that ran until the 70s.
Nice. Wow.
And, his house is still there.
Wow.
It's on the haunted tour of Tucson. His name was Carlos Ignacio Velasco. And he's just a super interesting dude. So he was kind of he refused to take no for an answer, and he did not let the prejudice environment that he thrived in as a businessman. But he just didn't want to take any shit.
Dude, that's awesome.
And he took a stand.
That's a great answer. See, I'd like to meet him now.
Yeah, and he, it's just cool. It's something we've kind of always known, and we also know that I think his daughter married a redheaded Frenchman that was came from France, and he was a cowboy, and that was at that point that was the most interesting part. It's oh yeah, we got a redhead in the family.
Wow. Have you been to his house in Tucson?
I have. I didn't go in because it's changed hands since then.
Okay.
After he died, my great grandmother, I think she moved in with one of her kids, and then the house fell into disrepair. But it was a nice house back in the day.
But you said it's on a haunted tour. Is it open to the public?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But he's buried in the Tucson Museum, and so is his wife.
Okay.
So I have a whole like other side of family members that some of them I do know, and some I've never met.
Yeah.
But just I knew I had family history in Tucson, and I always felt like I always liked it. My wife moved there before we got married for about a year, and I just felt like a weird connection there. Like I felt at home.
Huh.
I really liked it. Certain smells just really like resonated with me, like the desert, like sage. I'm like, oh, that smells good. Like after the monsoon, when you just smell the wet desert, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome, man. If
that's
we're
who I
ever,
probably would like to talk to today.
that's awesome. That's a great answer. If we're ever in Tucson together, I'd love to go with you over there and just see some of your history.
All right.
I think
we'll
would be
go
cool.
do that, and we'll go drink at Big Lou's
Hell yeah.
sports bar.
That's right. And for those that don't know, Big Lou used to manage the Kon-Tiki. So
Yeah.
So we love Lou. All right, man. So before we wrap up, let's talk real quick about what you're working on right now. What's the future of Tiki Diablo?
Man, I don't know. That door is like wide open.
Can we talk about what you're working on, or is it still is it not for public consumption just yet?
I mean, it's what I'm working on. If you want to put the dots together, it's there.
Okay.
I don't like the jinx stuff.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. If that's what you want.
Just fun, exciting stuff. Promoting quality design, and kind of what we try to do is keep Tiki traditional, yet with its own, like, I guess you asked me also, like, when we're talking about carving style and all that.
Yeah.
I've, at some point very early on in my career, I started interjecting my own culture into Tiki. So I would put that Latin twist to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see it, like, if it reflected in the names, like when I came back from carving in Europe, I carved in the Tikis in Spain, and I noticed that they called those, they didn't call them Tiki bars, they called them Hawaiian bars, or bar Hawaiiano, you know?
Right.
So, that kind of struck with me. So I just, have always tried to, I guess if I have to say what we have planned is to continue more of that early theme of interjecting my own culture, and mixing it with adding a little, Latin spice to it, but still being very respectful and working in a traditional style.
Very nice.
So
Very nice.
Honoring both cultures at the same time.
Very nice. I love it. Let's throw your social media and website out there for anybody that wants to check out your stuff or order merch from you.
Yeah. So my social media is Tiki Diablo. I have a Facebook page also, Tiki Diablo, and my website is tikidiablo.com.
Very nice. Well, hey, man, we did it. We finally recorded this podcast.
Yeah, 4 years later, right? Like the SpongeBob. Right. 4 years later.
That's right. But I would have liked to have done this in person and did it in front of, did it in person with drinks, right? But
dude, I was going to tell you, I was like, man, like I've been home. I have not gone anywhere. When I go to my shop, I try not to be anybody there. I'm like, let's line them up.
Yeah, man.
I'm spending the night, Adrian.
But here's the thing. Like, we've tried that before, and it never works out.
No, because we'll just start drinking and talking shit and just laughing and reminiscing.
I think even one time it was like, let's just record one at the Tiki Tea, and it,
that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, and most of my time, I usually kick it outside and smoke a cigar.
Right. Yeah,
and
me too.
I usually just have one drink and just nurse it all night long.
There you go. That's what I do.
But I'm there
too.
just to BS and hang out and smoke cigars with Senior.
Yep. I hope they open soon, man. I'm really missing it.
I heard. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I heard they might be opening up very soon.
All right, cool.
Next month, hopefully.
Very cool.
So, I'm all for, small business, local business, and, the Tiki Tea. I mean, that's just LA history.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever I can do to help them, I'm always down to help them.
I am too. There's lots of things I like about Tiki Tea. Number one, they're OGs, right? Ray Buin was one of the original bartenders for Don the Beachcomber. And like you said, it's LA history, the bars, LA history, Hollywood history. And the main thing that I really like about the Tiki Tea is that it's family owned. So when I'm buying a cocktail, or I'm buying a t-shirt, or whatever it is that I'm doing to support them, it's not going into the bank account of some corporation that's making a CEO a little bit richer. You know, it's going to help.
Corporate America doesn't need more money. Mom and pop needs our backup and our help.
That's right. It's going to help their family with put their kids through school or whatever, right? Every raise mistake I buy goes to helping a family, not a corporation. So,
and people, there was a discussion, I know we're going to wrap it up, but
no, it's all good.
There was a discussion about cultural appropriation and in the bar industry and people of color, and somebody brought up the Tiki Tea and how it's just like no other bar. And I know there's a big movement. There has been a big movement with the cocktail industry, and the art of the cocktail has really been elevated, and we have all benefited from it. Every single industry tied in with the cocktail and spirits industry has benefited from this. But one thing that they were saying was there's something magical about the Tiki Tea, because they have a direct lineage to the golden era of cocktails, and especially tropical cocktails. And they were just trying to explain it. And I said, well, you know what? It's like you said, it's family. You go in and it's like going to your uncle's house that happens to own a bar, or your uncle's bar, and your uncle's place of business, and it happens to be a tiki bar. So there's always a warm smile, open arms, and they take their hospitality seriously, but they don't take themselves seriously.
Yep.
That's what works for them.
Yep. I love it, man. Tiki Tea people, go out there and support them. And to our friend Tiki Diablo, at Tiki Diablo, tikidiablo.com. Thanks for being on the show, man. Appreciate it so much.
Pleasure.
All right, so I will let you go.
All right, Adrian. Good talking to you. Hi to the family.
I will. You too. Cheers. Aloha.